Hello. I think I'm live. So we'll just give a little bit time for people to join in. Okay, so I'm going to post whatever the links or any references that I have to share here. I don't have anything at the moment, but depending on the questions you guys ask and depending on the answers, I will just post all the links or whatever references on this. Yeah, so if you guys have any specific questions, you guys can just post on the comments and start asking. I'm not seeing any questions yet. So, hello. Okay, what is a multiple master font? Multiple master font format was developed by Adobe way back, and now it's being some of the technologies which were used for the format is being used in the new OpenType 1.8 specification, which is variable fonts. So basically, it's the same weights or same multiple styles, multiple weights. So you have in a font from bold to light, few different versions, right? So if you go to, let me share my screen. Yeah, yes, yes. So if you go to fonts.google.com for say Google Fonts, you'll see these fonts have multiple weights, different from light to black. But usually these files are in separate files, and multiple master font format lets you combine these versions, all these files into a single file and ship them. That was that is the sort of idea behind variable fonts. But now the multiple master fonts are not, that specific technology is not in use, but the new variable font technology is using some of the ideas and context behind that. Is there a simple platform to make a Sinhala font? I mean, just a plugin of version. So for if you want to make a font, you need to use a font editor, which is a software which you use to edit a font and create a font. So I'm like, right now I'm showing you Signage. It's one of the fonts that we did. We were commissioned to do by Google Fonts and Signage gallery here in Sri Lanka. So you have to use a font editor program. Now here, this is like, I'm using Font Forge. So if you want to make a font, you can use Font Forge, which is a free and open source font editor, or you can use True Font, which is it's not it's still in development, but there's a development version. You can see this is True Font. So I'll include all these links in there. So, well, there's no simple platform, but you can use a font editor program to make a font. And I'll try to include some links in the markdown document which I shared, how to make fonts. We are planning on doing some videos about how to make Sinhala fonts in the coming months. Probably we'll be sharing. We already have some videos online, so you can follow those if you want to learn how to make fonts. What motivated me to start studying about fonts? Well, I've been interested in letters in general since I started studying, like since I got interested in design itself. But I specifically got interested in studying fonts and sort of studying typeface design after I did this Sinhala and Tamil hybrid typeface project a few years ago in 2013 for my final year project at Academy of Design. I designed this project, and let me show you. So if you haven't seen this, so this was my final year project, which I designed a Sinhala and Tamil hybrid project, and this is what got me interested in actually studying typeface design. Because once I made this, I made it using whatever I knew, using graphic design tools like Illustrator and Inkscape, the open source equivalent of Illustrator. But then I wanted to improve it. What I realized is I didn't have enough knowledge and expertise to actually do any improvements on that, and then I went down the rabbit hole of studying more about fonts and typeface design and then ended up getting more and more into that. Yes. Can we know what the process of submitting a Google font? Do we need to create all the font and get the trademark from Sri Lanka before submitting? Where can we submit and for draft and check if it's simply what the path to create a Google font? Okay, so while back Google Fonts team had a guide on how to pitch a font project to Google. Let me dig it up if I can see, but I'm not sure whether they are accepting proposals at the moment. So yeah, I can't talk about that. I do not represent them, or so. anyway, I think I'll be able to answer that question in a while. Let me look it up, the details. Yeah. How can a beginner decide on types of fonts they are going to use for a website? Is there a specific guideline that someone should follow, or is it simply how they feel about it? Yes. So there are a few questions here. So for a beginner to decide how to use a font on a specific website, you have to think about the few things. One is the function of the website and whether what's it used for. So if it's a title font, if it's this big title, if you want a flashy title for, let's say, your website about is about cupcakes, and you need a really nice looking font which sort of goes with this cupcake idea, right? So you might want to go and look at a display typeface somewhere. So I'm just using Google Fonts because it's easier to find. So I can look at these stylized fonts and pick based on the message or the idea. And the other way of choosing a font for the project, the criteria is looking at the function. If it's for small size screens, if it's whether it's for a long form reading thing, or whether it's for a short form block quote kind of thing. So then based on that you can decide as well. There's no specific guideline, but there you can definitely use some sort of basic ideas and basic knowledge about typography. So if you can look at this. Yeah, so this is a really good resource I've found for anybody who's sort of want to know more about fonts and how fonts are being used. So typography, the term, if you're not familiar with the term, it relates to how fonts are being used. Types, you could say it's more or less about how fonts are being used. You can get a better idea about, you can look up the description. So I've included this link as well. This gives us some framework about how to use fonts and how to choose fonts. But you shouldn't, there could be some degree of how you feel about a font, but it's always about what you're trying to communicate and whether people can read it. So if you are designing a label for an ice cream brand, you can't use Times New Roman. You have to use something that relates to that brand and the image. Waiting for the... Yes, okay. Thank you, Asela. Yes, Gulan. Can you recommend a couple of fonts that are modern and suitable to be used for mobile applications for Android and iOS platforms? Yeah, so there are a lot of fonts out there. So I mean, Google Fonts is one of the places that you can get free fonts. There are a few other places that you can look at. But the thing is, there are a lot of modern and modern fonts and really well-designed fonts around which you can use. But it depends on your product as well and what you're trying to communicate. So out of the blue, there's like right away there's few fonts that you can use. Sans serif fonts, which is mostly used in UIs these days. So depending on your application, you have to choose. But I would say go with the sans serif for the UI like right now, and then based on your the idea and the sort of based on the usage, and as I said like earlier, based on the usage, how it's being used, how people are going to use that app, you will have to change. You will have to decide on the font based on that. Yeah, I hope I answered that. Coral drawing adala ganna. Oh, Corel Draw Illustrator වගේ softwares පාවිච්චි කරනවා ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ fonts හදන්න ලංකාවේ ගොඩක් කට්ටිය use කරනවා මේ softwares ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි මේ Corel Draw හරි එහෙම නැත්නම් Inkscape හරි Illustrator වගේ software එකක අපි අකුරු අඳින්නේ වෙන වෙනම images විදිහට මේ font එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ අර අපි ටෙස්ට් කරන්න වෙනවා හැම වෙලේම එක අකුරකට පස්සේ තව අකුරක් එන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එක එකකට එකක් සම්බන්ධ වෙන proportions මොනවාද කියන එක ටෙස්ට් කරලා බලන්න වෙනවා. එතකොට අපි මේ font editor program එකක් ඇතුලේ දේවල් දෙකක් තියෙනවා. එකක් තමයි precision එක. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ අපි අඳින curves වල නිවැරදිභාවය කියන එක අපිට වඩා මේ හොඳ මේ precision එකට මොකක්ද කියන්නේ? වඩා නිවැරදි අපිට ඕනේ තැනට යන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා font editor software එකක් ඇතුලේ කියන්නේ 1000න් එකක වගේ නිවැරදිභාවයකින් අපිට මේ curves වෙනස් කරන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා මේ true font හරි font forge හරි වගේ software එකක් use කරලා බලුවොත් එහෙම මම හිතන්නේ වෙනස පේන්න පටන් ගන්නවා අනිත් එක තමයි මට පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා මේ font එක ඒ වෙලාවෙම font එකක් විදිහට export කරලා try කරලා බලන්න ඒක install කරලා දැන් මේ පහසුකම Corel Draw Illustrator ඇතුලේ නෑ මොකද ඔයා ඒක ඇතුලේ ඇඳලා බලලා ඉවර වෙලා තමයි කරන්නේ මේ Corel Draw හරි Illustrator වගේ software එකකට පුරුදු වුණ කෙනෙක්ට ලේසි වෙන්න පුළුවන් නමුත් font හදන්න දිගටම හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා නම් හොඳම වැඩේ වෙන්නේ මේ font editor software එකකට පුරුදු වෙන එක ඒක මම අර ඉස්සරලා කිව්වා වගේ font forge තියෙනවා එහෙම නැත්නම් true font කියන font editor එකක් තියෙනවා නොමිලේ ගන්න පුළුවන් ඒවා ඊට අමතරව ගත්තාම මේ සල්ලි ගෙවලා ගන්නවා නම් font lab කියන software එක සහ මේ දැනට Mac එකට විතරක් වෙන එකක් තියෙනවා glyphs කියන software එක මේ softwares ටික තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඇත්තටම මම කියන්නේ මුලින්ම පටන් ගන්න කෙනෙක් නම් හොඳම වැඩේ තමයි මේ Font Forge කියන software එකෙන් පටන් ගන්න එක. මොකද මේ investment එක කරන එක තේරුමක් නැහැ. සල්ලි දීලා මේ software එක ගන්න එක. හොඳම වැඩේ Font Forge හරි එහෙම නැත්නම් True Font හරි editor එකකින් පටන් ගන්න එක. මූලික වටේ මට මම කලින් අහපු ප්‍රශ්නයකට පොඩ්ඩක් මම හිතන්නේ ආපහු එන්න තිබුණා මේ Google Fonts වලට කොහොමද සබ්මිට් කරන්න කියන එක. දැනට ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ so I have to revisit one of the questions okay hold on. Okay. What are the Websafe fonts? Do I need to use Websafe fonts? What are the Websafe fonts? Websafe. Okay, so Websafe fonts. Websafe fonts කියන්නේ web එකට ready කරපු ඒ කියන්නේ web එක use කරන්න ලෑස්ති කරපු prepare කරලා තියෙන fonts. So yes, you have to use Websafe fonts if you're using it for a web or a app because then it makes sure that your product and your UI is sort of rendered accordingly in all platforms. So that's why you need to use them. And let me pull out some resources on these. And with the Websafe Font Stack, you can make sure that it's going to be rendered whatever happens. Like sometimes because of a slower connection, the web fonts might not load. So you have this system font stack that makes sure that your text is rendered whatever happens. Even if it's a slower connection or there's a problem with your web fonts service, web fonts loader or web fonts server, the web fonts Websafe Font Stack will make sure that it's the text is displayed not as intended because your font is not going to be loaded for some reason, but it's, at least closer to what you want it to look like. So yeah, it's a fail-safe mechanism to start with. Yes. Yeah, let me look up the for. So you can go to regarding the Google Fonts submission. I'll try to find if there's anything online on that. There's a GitHub repo from Google Fonts which have some documentation on yes. Okay. So this repository, this is an answer to Samat's question. Okay, I'm posting here. So this repository has documentation coming from Google Fonts. Yeah. ෆොන්ට් එකක් අඳින්න පටන් ගන්න විශේෂ අකුරක් තියෙනවද? ඔව් ඒ කියන්නේ එක ලැන්ග්වේජ් එකෙන් ලැන්ග්වේජ් එකට වෙනස් වෙනවා. දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් ඉංග්‍රීසි ෆොන්ට් එකක් හදනවා නම් එහෙම ඒක අඳින්න පටන් ගන්න දැන්ට ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් විදිහට තියෙන්නේ මේ ඇඩිෂන් කියන අකුරු ටික. මේක මේ රෙඩින් යුනිවර්සිටි එකෙන් ඩෙවලොප් කරපු වචනයක් වචනයක් කියන්නේ මේකෙන් වැදගත්කම තමයි මේකෙන් අර මේ අකුරු ගොඩාක් ඩිසයින් කරලා ඉවර වෙලා අවසානයේ චේන්ජස් කරන්න තියාගන්න නැතුව පළවෙනි වටය ඇතුළෙම පුළුවන්කම තියනවා මේ ඒ ඇල්ෆබෙට් එකේ අර මූලික නිකන් චරිත ලක්ෂණ වගේ දේවල් ලොක් කරගන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක අකුරු දෙකක් අතර දුර කොච්චරද? එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙනම් මේක එච්චරම හොඳ ෆොන්ට් එකක් නෙවෙයි මේක ඩිස්ප්ලේ කරන්නේ. right. දැන් මේකේ මෙතනින් ඇත්තටම මේ තව අකුරු ගණනාවක් P Q D A අකුරු සහ මේ කොහොමද මේ හොරිසොන්ටල් එකකට මේ අතර තියෙන එකකට ඇවිල්ලා මේ වගේ කර්ව් එකක් සෙට් වෙන්නේ කොහොමද? ඊට පස්සේ රවුන්ඩ් කියන ෂේප් එක කොහොමද තියෙන්නේ? ඊට පස්සේ මේ මෙතන මේ අකුරු ටිකෙන් රෙප්‍රසන්ට් වෙනවා මේ මුළු ඇල්ෆබෙට් එක ඇතුළෙම රිපීට් වෙන shapes සහ patterns කීපයක්. මේ ඒකින්ද තමයි මේක පාවිච්චි වෙන්නේ. එතකොට දැන් මේක වෙන භාෂාවල් වලටදී දැන් සිංහල වලට නම් අපි ඇත්තටම කයන්නෙන් වගේ පටන් ගන්න කියන එක තමයි කියන්නේ. කයන්න, පයන්න සහ ටයන්න වගේ අකුරු වලින් අපිට හිතා ගන්න පුළුවන් දැන් අපි ටයන්න වගේ අකුරක් හැදුවට පස්සේ ඒකේ උස කොච්චරද වෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ right screen is not shared. Okay. Sorry. Yes. So ඒ කියන්නේ මේ දැන් මේ addition කියන මේ වචනේ තමයි පාවිච්චි වෙන්නේ මේ ලැටින් එහෙම නැත්නම් ඉංග්‍රීසි fonts හදනකොට. ඒකෙදි අපිට මේ අකුරු ටිකෙන් ඇත්තටම අපිට මේ horizontal එකක් තියෙනකොට ඒ line එකට කොහොමද ඇවිල්ලා set වෙන්නේ මේ වගේ curve එකක් කියන එක. දැන් මේක repeat වෙන pattern එකක් English alphabet එක ඇතුලේ නේ. එතකොට ඒක මේ වගේ වෙන අකුරු ගණනාවක් තව තියෙනවා. N එකත් එහෙමයි M එකත් එහෙමයි. එතකොට අපි අකුරු ඔක්කොම අඳින්න යන්නේ නැහැ. අපි කරන්නේ ඇත්තටම මේ වගේ තෝරගත්ත අකුරු කීපයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ මුළු ඇල්ෆබෙට් එකේ characteristics එහෙම නැත්නම් චරිත ලක්ෂණ කියලා කියමුකෝ. ඒවා represent වෙන අකුරු set එකක් තමයි අපි තෝරගන්නේ. එතකොට සිංහල වලට මේකට systems දෙකක් තියෙනවා. අපේ මේ Dr. Sumantri Samaravikrama ගේ PhD එක ඇතුලේ යා device කරලා තියෙනවා සිංහල වලට සිස්ටම් එකක් පටන් අරගෙන යන්න ඕන විදිහ ගැන. ඇත්තටම හෙට ඒක ගැන වර්ක්ෂොප් එකක් තියෙනවා මේ කොළඹදී. අකුරු කලෙක්ටිව් කියන පේජ් එක බලුවොත් එහෙම බලන්න පුළුවන්. කොළඹ ඉන්න කෙනෙක්ට හෙට එන්න පුළුවන් ඒක ගැන දැනගන්න. ඊට අමතරව ජෙනරලි ගත්තාම කයන්න, පයන්න සහ ටයන්න කියන අකුරු කීපයෙන් පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ මේ මියන්න, සහ ක්‍රියන්න වගේ කීපයක් තව ඩිසයින් කරන්න පටන් ගන්න ඕනේ. මොකද මේ අර උසවල් කොච්චර දුරට මේ උස වෙනස් වෙනවද කියන එක බලා ගන්න. ඒකටත් අපි මේ අකුරු සෙට් එකක් හදලා තියෙනවා මේ පොඩි වචන කීපයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් ඔය මේ ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවට ගත්තොත් එහෙම තියෙනවා මම හිතන්නේ මේ ඔය quick brown fox jumped over the fence කියන ඒක හදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ අකුරු සෙට් එක ඔක්කොම ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවේ පෙන්වන්නේ. ඒ වගේ අපි සිංහල වලටත් සෙට් එකක් හදලා තියෙනවා මේ සිංහල ෆොන්ට් ටූල්ස් කියන තැන. අර මම මේ හිතන්නේ මේක අදාළ වෙනවා අනිත් ෆොන්ට්ස් ගැන අහපු කට්ටියටත්. Right, okay. Perfect. So this repository which I just posted has a lot of resources. Basically, like everything that we have done over the last few years in areas of Sinhala font design, we have posted here. So you can. There are some templates as well. Some of them are like really old, not updated. So we have to take care of that. Anyway, the material here you can use to sort of get started. So we have some test documents and also where to start. So just to circle back and explain what I was explaining explaining regarding the where to start designing a font. It depends on the language. So for English, there's this word which was developed and then widely used called adhesion. But what it allows the designer to do is sort of design the minimum set of characters, or like a minimum viable product to figure out the style, right? So here this is a horizontal which you have another curve connecting. So this pattern is repeated in the alphabet, right? So if I'm to do the same thing for Sinhala, you can see there's a lot of similar characters, and what we have figured out is it's better to start from ka, pa and ta letters and then move on to other letters. So actually, Dr. Sumantri Samaravikram from University of Moratuwa did her PhD on Sinhala typography and developed a system, devised a system to figure out where to start. And there also you start with pa, ma, ta and few characters and move on. I'll include those information in the markdown document as well. Most of the time we have to find the font which is used in a particular image. So is there a method to track anything like that, like Google search by image and instruction? Yes, so if you want to find out about a font which is in use, so there's a site called Fonts in Use. So if you know the name of the font, then you can go and find how that particular font is being used. Otherwise, there's a let me find out. There's an app from Mark. Yes, so for web fonts on a website, you can use. There are few different web extensions which you can use to figure out so what the font and also the font face ninja. Yes. Yeah, this would also help you. and it actually helps to find out which font is being used, and also figure out uh, where to find that font, the same font if you want to get it. Yes. Sinhala font එක මූලික හැඩතල මොනවා? Yeah, so the basic shapes of a Sinhala font, that's a wide question. Uh, you could say mostly like Sinhala shapes, like there are certain characteristics that you have to lock down on a Sinhala font, right? So this part, this particular part, we call it the I. So this is a sort of repetitive character that you will see on almost majority of the base Sinhala letters. So that is one of the basic shapes that you have to figure out and design. But the thing is, you're not going to repeat the same shape, but you're going to use it in different places in different ways. But it sort of belongs, the idea and the goal is to make sure that they belong together in the when it's typed together and put together, right? එතකොට අර සිංහල ෆොන්ට් එක මූලික හැඩතල කියන ප්‍රශ්නෙට ඒක ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒකට උත්තරේ දෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ අපිට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් මූලික හැඩතල කීපයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මම මේක උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් මේ ඇහැ කියන එක තැන් කීපයක එක විදිහට පාවිච්චි වෙන්නේ. එතකොට අපි මේ අර එකම ඇහැ හැමතැනම පාවිච්චි වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. නමුත් ඒක මේ ස්ටයිල් එක විදිහට ගත්තාම එකක් වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඇඳලා ඉවර වුණාම මේක පාවිච්චි වෙනකොට අපි ටෙක්ස්ට් එකක බලාගෙන යනකොට අපිට ඒක වෙනසක් පේන්න බෑ. දැන් අපි පොඩි දෙයක් කරගෙන බලුවොත් දැන් මම මේ අඳමින් ඉන්න ෆොන්ට් එක තමයි මම මේ පොතක තියෙන එක මම පෙන්නනවා. දැන් මේ වගේ එකක අපි බලාගෙන යනකොට මේ ඇහැ කියන එක, or this eye shouldn't, like, one of those shapes shouldn't stand out. They should all belong together and work together. So to answer the question of whether we have like some basic shapes, what you have is not basic shapes or base shapes, but some base patterns which repeat them. Make up me kayanne me udata ena kalo, this spike. This is repetitive in few other places, right? Sa, ka, and o and few other letters. So you can see that being repeated, and therefore, yeah, that's basically the idea. Anything else? Yes, there's a lot of so what are the research areas in the field of fonts? Yeah, so there's loads of different vectors that, areas that you can explore, but there's a lot of interest in multi-script typography, multi-script design, because increasingly the world and like all the websites are becoming polyglot, right? In multiple languages. Like, for example, in Sri Lanka, like all the government websites are required to have all, not just websites, but all the government communication should be in all three languages: Sinhala, Tamil, and English. So this is persistent across the world. A lot of if you look at Facebook and Google and other companies, in the last 5 years or so, they started focusing on India and China and these markets, and what they have to do is support the languages of those countries and those regions if they want the people in those areas to actually use their services. So this is a really sort of, it's a really good interest area at the moment, a research area. And also there's a lot of innovation in file formats and technical side as well. So we have these two areas: aesthetics of the fonts and type, and the technical part. So in both areas there's a lot of innovation going on. Like last year there was this presentation by the Japanese type foundry Morisawa. They worked with a few other engineers to use machine learning to actually design CJK fonts. CJK, so Chinese and Chinese, Japanese and Korean fonts. Especially Chinese takes a lot of effort and time to develop because of the around 30,000 character set. So there is this project where machine learning is used to auto-generate some of the characters based on the human-defined patterns. So I'll include that link as well. Yes, so if you're like really interested in keeping, so I'm answering this question: who are the people or organizations we should follow if we are interested in learning and keeping update with the latest fonts and happenings? So if you are in Sri Lanka, we like recently with few other interest groups started a collective called Akuru Collective. So definitely you should, if you're in Sri Lanka and if you're interested in Sinhala, Tamil and English typography and fonts, you should definitely follow typography.lk Akuru Collective. We are trying to build a community there in Sri Lanka focused on fonts and typography and better design with using letters. So that's definitely the where to go if you are in Sri Lanka. And then there are multiple forums and places that you could go. Type Drawers is the, let me see, yes. Type Drawers is the sort of the standard place that you go to meet type designers. A lot of type designers hang out and have discussions on Type Drawers forum. So I just posted the link. It's the there's a section, there's multiple sections you can talk about. So font technology, technique and theory, type business, type design critiques, type design software, from research to business to events related to fonts and type. This is the place to go, and it's a good place to actually find out about other people as well. And type design, font making and type design community is very active on Twitter as well. So if you're active on Twitter, it's really easy to find out a few other you can explore Twitter and find out more about font designers and also find interesting people to follow and to follow basically. What is the job path for a font designer? There are different ways of making money if you're interested in becoming a font designer or a type designer. So one is, you like, if you're lucky, you get hired by you work for a company which makes fonts, which is a type foundry or a type design studio. That's one way. Or you make your own fonts and sell licenses. There are a few, like Pushpananda, Mr. Pushpananda Eknayak in Sri Lanka. That's what he does. He makes fonts and he sells license to the fonts and that works out. And other way is getting hired to do commission work for a specific company. For example, in Sri Lanka, there's few companies who has their own bespoke fonts. Let's say like Nations Trust has their own brand font. Elephant House has their own brand font. One of the most popular ones, Sri Lankan Airlines, has their own brand fonts. So getting hired for custom font design work, that's another way. And as a font designer, you could be doing consultancy on typography, like how to use fonts. That's something I've been doing a lot in the last year, also consulting to different companies on a range of things related to fonts, technology, and also design. We did a few projects where multilingual communication, communicating in all three languages, is important. So in those cases, we sort of help the clients to find which fonts to use, which are the technically higher quality fonts, and what are the matching fonts. So this is that's basically different ways of going about it. And learning sort of how to make fonts and how fonts are used as in typography actually helps you better understand your design process. If you're a designer, it helps you a lot in other areas as well, because if you learn how to make fonts, then you actually have to pay more attention to how the fonts are being used. So that is sort of another plus point about learning font design. Maybe you might not pursue a career in just making fonts, but you have this like you can find an area where it's important to work with letters and fonts and work in that vector. Yeah, so how can someone get into font designing, and where should someone start? Yeah, so it's the sort of font design you can, because it's almost like just designing something technically. It's almost like designing something with Photoshop, for example. I mean, from a technical level. So this is let me share my, yeah, you can see my screen. So this is, I'm just going to open a new window, new file on FontForge, and just design my letter A here. Let's okay, this is my letter A, and I'm going to name it Pathum, and just export the so I'm going to just export it. So the point is that, now my font is made. So the idea is that you can actually, if you have a computer and if you have this software, you can just right away start making fonts. But it takes a bit of time and energy and actually learning to become better at it. But getting the font editor software and designing font, that's really easy. That's almost like, just because you can use Photoshop, you don't become a graphic designer. So that's the truth. But you can start by looking at some of the online resources and trying your hand at it, because it's a time consuming trade, and it's a time consuming task. So where you can start is just what I would suggest is start with just download FontForge and start looking around, looking at fonts more closely, and start paying attention to how fonts are being used. And there are a lot of resources uh, if you want to start designing. So for example, we have this design with the FontForge tutorial, which sort of helps you to it's a really nice resource because it contains some links, and it gives you the technical knowledge plus some idea about where to start. I suggest even if if you're trying to design Sinhala or Tamil or any other language, it's good to start with just working with with the English font, because it's just those letters addition, and this FontForge tutorial will help you to actually kick off the process. So what I suggest is just dip your just get a feel of it and see how it goes. It's a time consuming process. See if you like it, and main thing is start. Don't think about designing fonts, but start paying more attention to how fonts are being used already. Yes, the current state of Sinhala Unicode fonts is actually it's I would say there's not much happening. We at Moniac we are working on constantly developing new fonts, but you can see some of the work that we have done here on the link I posted. But the current situation is there are only a handful of people developing Unicode fonts. The Unicode adoption is not high as it should be because of few reasons. One of the reasons is still in Sri Lanka the publishing industry is not using Unicode. Most of them are still using legacy FM Abe like ASCII like fonts, because Adobe products are not supporting Sinhala properly. I think that's going to be fixed within this year also. So because of that, there haven't been much investments into developing Unicode fonts, because there is no market, like virtually no market. So basically the publishing industries would be the biggest buyer if you're making fonts, at least in Sri Lanka. So because they are not supported for with the current workflows, there haven't been much investments into fonts. But we are exclusively working on developing Unicode fonts, because we want to sort of move the industry forward and start and initiate this Unicode adoption. We will see more innovation and more fonts coming out because of the web. Because right now, like over the last 2 or 3 years, we saw a big spike in the queries we get at Moniac about how to use fonts and how to use web fonts, and we definitely know that over the last 3 or 4 years the internet usage has anyway spiked. But something happened with these elections and presidential elections, especially the presidential elections. It was a time when you could see a lot of people coming online and using internet in Sinhala language, and this actually helps us as type designers and also designers doing work in all 3 languages to make a case to have it, like for having more Sinhala and Tamil fonts. And it's really important to switch to Unicode, because Unicode allows us to have have a font which includes all the different all three languages in the same font file, whereas a old font would only be able to have ASCII like fonts, which is like FM Abaya, FM Maliti, Wage, those sort of fonts can only have either Sinhala or Tamil or the Latin. So with Unicode fonts, you can have all three languages in the same font, and you don't have to go into the document. If you type a Sinhala document in Sinhala FM Abaya font, you will have to go in and change the font into Times New Roman, and then to FM Abaya if you have English text in between. So with Unicode fonts, you don't have to do this, and you can do a lot more work, especially like sorting and arranging, searching. You can use regular expressions and use these to find text as well. What should we do as a country to have more beautiful Sinhala and Tamil fonts? Yeah. Well, I think more like rather than being more beautiful, I think we have a lack of fonts for some of the basic functionalities. For example, so if you go to like singhalafonts.org or any other place, you will see these websites or links, so you can download maybe like 1,000 Sinhala fonts or something. But Sumantri, Dr. Sumantri Samaravikrama did for her research, she collected, and I think we catalogued around, there's only like around 120 Sinhala fonts, like original fonts, and everything else is just copies of fonts changed into different things. People just copy the font and put a different name or a metadata into it and just output and share it. What we need is not more beautiful. Yes, we need more beautiful fonts, but what we need is more useful fonts for end user cases. We don't have a good Sinhala font which we could use for signage, for example. Now in Sri Lanka, the government is required by the national language policy and other policies. The government and government is required to communicate everything in all three languages, especially the information. So if you just look at the signage, just look at the expressway signage or these name boards you see, metaning herenda කියලා තියෙනවා, හරි අතනින් හැරෙන්න, මෙතනින් හිමින් යන්න, go slow. These boards, if you look at these things, most of them are using these fonts designed for screen use, not specifically designed for signage. For example, if you look at US signage or signage in Netherlands or other countries, they use fonts specifically designed for the context of signage. They are tested in ultimate situations where you are passing by the signage really fast and you have just like 10 seconds to read, and the font is engineered and designed to work in that context. So what we need is not just beautiful fonts, things like that where there's more sophistication. So I think now we are going there because the market is expanding and we are getting more and more investments in Sri Lanka and business opportunities are opening up. So obviously when you have more business and user cases, then the demand for fonts will go high. So that's the idea. Yes, we need more beautiful fonts, but what we need is fonts that cover all areas. So for example, Sinhala, we didn't have good stencil typeface, so Stick Nobles, our typeface sort of fills in that gap. Another gap that we realized was we didn't have a narrow font which is good for titling and takes a bit less space on website. So Yal Devi font was designed specifically thinking about that. So we recently acquired Kaputa font from the Kaputa community, and we are developing it to be a really small. One of their requirements is the font to be as small as possible. So while Abe Libre font, which is meant for publishing, has around 800 characters, Kaputa font, which is meant for web use and for really slow internet connections, it has only 160 characters. So for specific cases, we have to look at specific engineering methods and design methods. Yeah. So I think that answers the question. Yeah, so I think our hour is up. Is there anything else that I can clarify? So I'll update the markdown document with all the links which I posted earlier, and hopefully post it on the event page as well. Yeah, I think that's a wrap then. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sustainable Education Foundation and everybody doing great work there for this opportunity. I really enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, you can find my email and other details on the link as well. You can contact me on Facebook, or you can find me on Twitter at Pathum Ego. Yes. Okay, I think that's a wrap. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, and thanks again, the team at the Sustainable Education Foundation. Yes, have a good night.